Good evening and welcome to the April 6, 2016 meeting of the Milton School Committee. Before we begin, please join us in a loud, rousing version of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I think that was our best of the year so far. Quickly, on the agenda, a couple of additions and subtractions. Without objection, I'd like to add, under the superintendent's report, section 4, add a new subpart A, future or award-winning future problem solvers. And so the numbering will cascade down. Milton High School Site Council will be B, happenings will be C. Under the chair's report, section 5, I'd like to add school committee schedule as section A, and then again the subparts will cascade down as B, C, and D. And then under, we're going to defer the Health and Wellness Subcommittee report until the next meeting. And that is all the proposed changes. Mr. Donahue.
Homeschooling is second reading.
Second reading on homeschooling. So we're gonna revise. Sorry, I should have caught that. We're gonna revise section 7A, second reading homeschooling policy. You got that, Maura?
And vote. So, Mr. Chair, that should say vote as well.
And vote. Yes, that's correct. So, Maura, that'll be 7A. Will be second reading and vote. All right. Thank you, Dr. Donahue. Thank you, Leroy. So, without objection, we'll approve those changes to the evening's agenda and move on to section 3, citizen speak. Maura, do we have anyone here for citizen speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to section 4 of the agenda, superintendent's report. Ms. Gormley.
Thank you, Chairman Zulus. I couldn't be prouder tonight in your audience and in front of you. We have our future problem solvers here tonight to recognize. I'd invite Cunningham Principal Jonathan Redden and all the future problem solvers to come around these seats and maybe then stand. Some stand and some take seats. Would you, all the future problem solvers from Pierce, Tucker, and Cunningham, come forward?
Collicott? No, not Collicott.
And Collicott. Yes. So maybe if one group takes seats and then the other future problem solvers behind.
You could do a musical chair.
Oh. Yeah, exactly. So we have with us tonight, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Redden. He will be Dr. Redden eventually. Tonight he's Mr. Redden. So in the Milton Public Schools, we have a future problem solving program. This is a national program, and all of the fourth graders in the Milton Public Schools participate in this program. And then, as is in band and strings, students who show a strength in the program go on in the 5th grade to be on individual school teams. And then the program has been so successful in the 4 elementary schools that now we have 2 teams at the middle school. So Mr. Redden is going to outline the process and what happened. But Saturday we had students from Pierce, Collicott, Cunningham, and Tucker compete. And then from each of the schools, we had individual students go to compete on an individual basis. So last Saturday at Clark University in Worcester, as evidenced by the students who are here tonight, who deserve the school committee and the community and the school districts, congratulations, competed. And Mr. Redden's going to share with these students a little bit about the process, what the topic was, and the good news story all the way around.
So good evening. Thank you. I'm here because Mrs. Henry's out sick today, so I'm here representing Ms. Henry and all the great work. This is her second year being the future problem-solving coach. The middle school coach. The middle school coach also is represented here by a few middle school students. But I'm going to let the students say their names first, and then I'm going to say what they competed, let them say what they competed in on Saturday. So if you say your name and what you competed in, just so we can go make sure everyone has a chance to speak.
Nice and loud.
Daniel Cherry, the individual competition.
Jackson Matika, the team competition. Aaron Clancy, team competition.
Anderson Corman, I'm on the team competition.
Dominique Thomas, team competition.
Abigail Files, team competition.
Ellis Wallace, team competition.
Emily Gallagher, team competition.
Priya Shah, team competition. Logan Doe, team competition.
Will Kelly, team competition.
Sophia Porras, team competition.
Adriana Ruiz, team competition.
Sophie Kotsiba, team competition.
Raina Soher, individual competition.
Ian Gravellisi, team competition.
Mary Mullen, individual competition.
Michael Duffy, individual competition.
Alex Benoit, individual competition.
So now I'm going to speak to you from my perspective. This is my 4th year at the Cunningham School, and this is the 2nd year in a row a Cunningham team has made it to the state bowl. But as you know, Milton's always recognized at the state bowl, at least since I've been here, and that's due to the hard work of the coaches. And raise your hand if this is your 2nd time going to the state bowl. So that's just evidence that that's just evidence we have a strong foundation. We have elementary students. They were competing against middle school age students at the State Bowl on Saturday, and a lot of them placed, and and they all did very well, and they all worked very, very hard. I wasn't able to attend the debate piece, but when I walked in, a lot of people were giving me feedback on sort of the conversations that they were having, how they worked together, and I was able to actually see the work. I don't know if anyone brought their work packet that they did, and you can tell that it definitely reflects sort of the time they put in during their own lunches and their own recess on a weekly basis with Mrs. Henry and their coach from the middle school to prepare for the State Bowl. The topic was the global workforce, global workplace, and apologies, and the individual competition. Did you do the same topic as well? Yeah. As well. Okay. And as you know, some more exciting news. We have our Cunningham team here that placed first, and Mr. Kelly here has our plaques here. They placed first, and they're going to be headed to Michigan on June to compete at the international competition. So instead of me trying to figure out what we did on Saturday, does anyone want to talk about sort of the process?
Okay.
So on Saturday, what we did when we got to Clark University is we got a work packet, and what we were supposed to do is we got a future scene where some characters, we were supposed to evaluate the future scene, give problems, and evaluate those problems, produce solutions, and how our solution is going to work in an action plan. Then we did the action plan presentation, which was basically acting out our action plan.
Thank you. Anyone want to add? What about someone for the individual?
So for the individuals, we were led out of the assembly room at Clark University, and we went one building to the side towards the auditorium, and right away we got our packets and started working. And as our previous speaker said, we went through the 6-step process to complete the packet, but as individuals we did not perform a skit.
And as Superintendent Gormley stated, they all started in 4th grade with Mr. Bill Bano. Does anyone want to talk about how that helped them prepare?
Mr. Baino was a library teacher that taught us since first grade. He inspired some of us to learn what will happen in the future and how to solve these problems. But though we need to think, but also teaching us to think ahead of time, because sometimes it isn't what you think.
Mr. Bino inspired me to do future problem solving because he was the one who taught the 6-step process and actually helped me want to learn and motivated me to do this.
So, Mr. Redden, will you have these future problem solvers share the 6-step process with the parents and the school committee and the public?
Sure. So our first step is to find problems from the future scene we're given. And then the next step is to select an underlying problem, the problem that we think is the most important. Then after that, we produce solution ideas from that underlying problem. And then we select criteria on how to evaluate all 8 of all of our of a possible of 16 solutions. And then we apply that criteria through using a grid method, and we evaluate which solution would be the best. And then we write an action plan describing that solution and how it impacts the future scene and topic and the underlying problem.
And I think these students are very, very modest, because students from across the state and the country, when the Cunningham team goes to Michigan State, they call this the International Bowl. So there are students from across the country and internationally who will be at this bowl, and the students who individually competed, they won't hear for about a week. Now, you don't know what the international problem is yet? No, nobody's been notified. But these students are given, each time they participate in a problem, a package of college-level material to prepare for competing on the problem. And this time, would you share with the school committee and the public how you had experts? I want to share each of your teams who came in, and what did they help? Did it help with these individuals coming in?
Well, basically, during one of our meetings, we had a Skype call with a business expert in New York. He worked globally with Cisco, like internet and power company, and he worked with like presidents of other countries to help get power into like their country or the whole world. So, and he just told us about like the impact of how the internet helps his job. And
excellent.
Yeah, okay.
So we also at Pierce had someone come in during one of our after-school meetings. So she worked for, she started a company for STEM, and she told us about all of the values of STEM versus vocational working. She told us how communication was very important in the workplace. She told us the use of ethnic calendars in her workplace, and she also told us how to find certain problems using communication, ethics and religion, defense, and some of the categories needed to solve problems in future problem solving and gain extra points, which I thought was very helpful. So it overall was very helpful.
I think that was Miss Lorden, a parent at the Pierce, so that was excellent.
We have one more comment about Mr. Baino.
Sure.
I would just like to add that when I was in 4th grade, Mr. Baino was a very funny guy, and he always made future problem solving fun, and everyone in the grade couldn't wait until the Tuesday that we did it, and he really made me want to do future problem solving next year.
Okay, Ms. Padera.
Future Problem Solvers is one of my favorite programs. I was so excited to hear about the Cunningham team because I know that the coaches have been really excited to get a team to internationals. So I'd like to say that. But I love your last comment about Mr. Baino because this is a program that's so important for us to protect. It's, you know, civics education, which is huge right now. And I think what you had said is true. If we didn't introduce all of you to it in 4th grade, it's not like something that everybody knows about. So at the Pierce, when you sign up as an elective, it's just an after-school club. A lot of people wouldn't sign up for it, or not as many, do you think? Because you wouldn't know what it is, and it seems kind of random. What does that mean? But it's 4th grade, and Mr. Baino has done such a great job making it a fun class that so many kids are excited about it, and the ones that continue to do it in 5th grade, but even some that don't do it in 5th grade come back to it at the Pierce. And there's a lot of clubs and things in the high school that kind of branch off from Future Problem Solvers, I think. We have students going as a Life Smarts team, Future Business Leaders team. All these kind of branch out, but I think they all start with the Future Problem Solvers in 4th grade. So for me, it's so great that you guys can come here because this helps highlight this program that maybe a lot of adults in the town don't know about. And the fact that you all enjoy it so much is something that makes it real and something that makes it real to protect. Because I've known about it for a while because I just think it's from the first day that Superintendent Gormley took me to a Bill Baino class, I wanted to kind of sit in and stay for a while. It was so fun to watch. But I'm so happy for you guys, for all of you and how you did, because it's not easy, especially the individuals and the teams. It's not easy to do those skits in front of people. It's not easy to drive to Clark University and work all day on these plans. But, you know, I think you should stay with it. There's a lot more, even after the Pierce, to branch off into the high school. It'll make you that much more prepared, and you'll get to travel to some cool places, too, with your team. So congratulations, and stay with the Future Problem Solvers and the clubs that are similar to at the high school.
Mr. Walker.
So we couldn't be more proud of you, and you should be very, very proud of yourselves. I say this every once in a while, but when you compete against students from across the state and across the country, that's a very big deal, and you should be very proud of yourselves. But there's something more important happening here, and that is that you learn to prepare. The preparation gives you the confidence to compete. You compete well, and you gain more confidence, and you prepare even harder the next time. This will make more sense to you guys in 15 years, but that's a very, very important life skill, and I'm really very impressed that at your age, you've already mastered it. So good work, and I couldn't be prouder of you.
Dr. Someone else wants to be recognized.
I'd like to add one more thing, and that is thank you to all the coaches who helped us be here tonight, and it wouldn't be possible without them. And are any of them there? Oh, well, unfortunately, none of them are here, but I think we'd all like to say thank you.
Dr. Donahue.
I would just like to add my congratulations and my feelings of pride. I think that it speaks very well of you as individuals and teams that you were able to compete at this level, and you know, that some of you are wearing the fruits of your labor, and I see some of you have more than one award. So congratulations to all of you, and you should take a moment and enjoy the success that you have earned, because you have earned it.
So in order to keep meetings moving, we try not to repeat one another. We try not to repeat what other members have said, but this bears repeating, I think, in this circumstance. For your hard work, for your persistence, for your success, for your competence. This community and this committee could not be more proud of your efforts. Continually working hard, continually being persistent, and continually having success. We couldn't be more proud, and it gives us great pride to see your success and to see you go forward. So good luck in all your good luck in Michigan to those who are going there, and good luck in future years to our future problem solvers and our future Life Smarts team. And I know Superintendent Gormley lives vicariously through each of you and through our Life Smarts teams because that's one of her favorite programs, I know. So thank you very much for all your hard work. One other thing before we go on this topic. If they're going to Michigan, we may need a field trip request, and so we may have a meeting subject to our discussion on the 13th. Maybe we can take it up then, and if not, we'll take it up. We'll make sure that happens. But just let's make sure we get that field trip request in, so we make sure there are no hiccups getting them to Michigan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Redmond. Next, I'd like to invite to join us at the table Milton High School Site Council.
Mary, you have their names there?
Yes.
Can I see it?
I'll give it. Yes, you can take that. So I'm going to leave introductions and a hot act to follow. Milton High School Site Council.
Hot act
You're up to it.
I said a hot act to follow, but there's a level of optimism here to know that those are the future business leaders of tomorrow. And we've already had sidebar conversations about recruiting them to help us with our proficiency gap and things like that, but we'll talk about that another day. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity on behalf of Milton High School and our site council. Before we get started, we'll do some introductions, and we'll have people introduce themselves and say their role on the committee and their involvement. So starting off, James Jett, principal of Milton High School.
Tan Nguyen, class representative for freshman.
Ben Kelly, vice principal at Milton High School.
Greg Palia, math teacher, Milton High School.
Vicki McCarthy, community member, Milton High School Site Council.
Mary Scott, parent.
Veronica Guerrero Muscat, parent.
So before we get started, I do want to apologize for a few members, Kathy Huntington. We have a couple of people that weren't able to make it for last minute. Eva Chow, Joanna Needham. We have some of our students involved in athletics or other events that couldn't be here this evening. So we're and Jen Troy, who had a commitment as well. So we have members on our site council that aren't here. And Tyler, she had a commitment as a senior. But definitely their feedback during our meetings is very valuable. So we're going to start off with Mr. Kelly.
We're going to start off presenting just a highlight of some of the data that was seen in previous school committee presentations, starting with MCAS. This December 2015, we received our MCAS data and learned that we were, again, a level 1 school, along with Collycott Elementary School. A couple highlights from the various tests. 97% of our students were proficient or advanced in the ELA MCAS, a very high bar that our department has kept very consistent over the past few years. 90% of our mathematics students scored proficient or advanced, and 89 and 86 respectively proficient and advanced on the bio and STE MCAS exams. We're working to continue to close the proficiency gaps as well as push forward all of our students into the advanced categories. Some evidence there. A big success from our math department this year, pushing 71% of test takers into the advanced category, 19 in proficient, making up that 90%. Advanced placement data, again, a presentation was done earlier in the year, but a couple of quick highlights on our AP program. 56%, so we've got the majority now of our juniors and seniors taking at least one AP exam. 270 test takers last year, the 2014-15 school year. Those 270 test takers took a total of 591 exams. 73% of those exams earned a qualifying score. It's incredible. Across all of the different subjects, 73% earning college credit, depending on how they put that in their transcripts at the college they go to. Some demographic data from our AP test takers. 30% of our students taking AP exams and AP courses were students of color. And if we think about our demographics in the school, 37% of our enrollment are students of color. So we are getting more and more representation from our entire student body in AP classes and taking the exams. Kudos to our foreign language department. When we look at their scores each and every year, they raise the bar. Last year on the DELF French exam, French AP and Spanish AP, we're now 2 consecutive years of 100% passing scores. 100% scores of 3 or better on the APs and 100% passing scores on the international DELF exam. So great work by them. We have a handout that was left on the desk for you all on AP scholars. We receive a report from the College Board each fall designating 4 different categories of AP scholars, which range from AP Scholar all the way to National AP Scholar. You have it in front of you, so I will spare you the distinctions, but basically it has to do with the number of exams a particular student takes, their overall average score on those exams, as well as the number of times they earned qualifying scores, all the way up to a National AP Scholar who has to average at least a 4 on 8 or more exams. Just to highlight that, we have 7 students in our building up through the 2014-15 school year who have earned an average score of 4 and scores of 4 or more on 8+ exams, which is absolutely incredible. Not to mention the 42, 14, and 40 students who've earned other AP distinctions. So incredibly proud of our AP program, growing each and every year, and the success is also growing along with the enrollment. Finally, some other data highlights. SATs, almost 92% of our students took SATs in 2015. PSATs have continued to be administered to all sophomores and juniors during the school day. We were proud to do that again this year. College acceptance rate, 92% from our class of 2015 were accepted to 4- and 2-year colleges. SAT prep classes, we've continued to offer those to the community at a reduced rate for our students. Last year, we offered 20 advanced placement courses. 21 this year? About 20 again this year, maybe one above. And overall, 65% of our high school students participated in a sport. So on top of the academic data that we're incredibly proud of, we're continuing to make sure that we have a lot of participation in our extracurriculars.
So that's part of the end game, but the road is not finished. We still have work to do. But how do we get there? In addition to the great work that you just heard from some of our colleagues at the elementary and middle school level, because I think it's a team effort all the way up through the grades. But we start off with our freshman seminar. We do a lot of work. Again, we talked a little bit about this last year when we did this presentation. Freshman seminar is a program to help acclimate students into the high school, make a healthy transition. And they talk about everything leading up to study skills, test-taking skills, getting them familiar with the schedule and working with the students to provide them support to help ease the anxiety and make a smooth transition as they come into the high school. And we have found over the years that the success with this program is helping to prepare our students. The Bridge program, it says it's sponsored by the state, a state grant. We use some of the MCAS money that we get from the state to help support that, but this was a program that was originally initiated several years ago to support some students who were passing, but they needed an extra little push and extra support to be completely successful at the high school. This program has been in place for at least, I want to say, 6 or 7 years. We've seen some great success stories. We see some students that still need that push, and I'll talk about that in a second with our sophomore scholars that we just initiated this year. But we find that this program provides tutorial services over the summer for math, English, and science for several weeks in the summer, and then we also monitor them and provide them support throughout the academic year. Another project which we're very proud of, and we're still working with outside agencies trying to provide some funding for the National Science Foundation, is the Calculus Project. This was part of the advancement budget, so I do want to thank the school committee for supporting these programs. But the Calculus Project is a program that's identifying students that could use a little push at the middle school level in grade 7 in their bridge summer between 7th and 8th grade. And it's not a remedial program, it's pre-teaching the skills, it's pre-teaching the coursework and providing support. So hopefully by the time these students get into high school, not only are they able to take a calculus course, but they could take it and be successful in completing it. This program is going strong. This summer will be 3 cohorts now. So it is increasing, 3 cohorts. We don't have the end game data because obviously some of our students are moving into their sophomore year, but we're looking forward to it. But all indications that we get, it is a success. We did have some challenges during the academic year in terms of providing the tutorial services after school. I know last year, former math department head who deserves a lot of credit, Courtney Walsh, we had to change up the tutorial services to make sure we were meeting the needs of the middle school students. We were having them come up here to introduce them to the high school facility, provide tutoring, and we were finding that sometimes throughout the winter months, the enrollment was down. So we did a couple of days over at the Pierce with our staff going over there to try to increase that enrollment. The sophomore scholars that I alluded to, this is a program that I will say that just started this year. What we found is we still had some students who were moving from freshmen to sophomores that needed some additional support. We had 4 teachers, a science teacher, math teacher, history teacher, and English teacher that was after school 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, providing a nice, comfortable environment for students to come and get support. Despite efforts of providing food, encouragement, we found it very challenging with some of these students to negotiate their time and really get into it. So we're in the process of looking at that right now and seeing how we could tweak that program, or if it's something that we need to switch up and do something different to get to motivate these students to make it in, to get the extra support that they need. Now, when I'm talking about the support programs, and we'll talk about a few highlights in academics, and Mr. Kelly talked about some of the success in state testing, AP testing through the College Board. We are not losing sight of our students that are really rising to the occasion. I want to make that very, very clear. We continue to want to push our students to do extremely well. We're not forgetting the students that are right in the middle, but we also know that we have to, in one of the initiatives in the advancement budget, is closing the proficiency gap. And we continuously talk about the opportunity gap, providing these opportunities for students so they too can thrive and meet with success at the high school level. Okay, one of the things that we did to help us net some of the scores in science, and if you remember the last couple of years I've come before the school committee, and I know some members are new to the committee, we talked about the challenge with the science because it wasn't a unified curriculum and they were working on the science frameworks, the new generation science skills. But what we started to do a couple of years ago, and we continue to do that, is administer the biology exam, the biology final exam for our students very early on, sometime in May. Or early June, and we do that prior to the administration of the MCAS test. Teachers correct it. They look at some of the areas that we find in last-minute weakness, because again, the science is biology for freshman year, and then we kind of work on some of those skills, look at some of the areas of weakness, and try to bolster those up and provide the supports before our students have, actually take the MCAS exam. We will start that program in right after the vacation, the April vacation, and provide extra supports after school for our students in that area. And we hope that, oh, sorry. Something happened. We hope that we net the same success that we had, again, as we did last year. So here are some of our initiatives as part of our school improvement plan, and this is a district-wide plan, and it started in 2014 and will continue until 2017, obviously with tweaks as we move forward. But again, I just want to highlight those again. The first one is closing the proficiency gap. The second one is advancing science and STEM, which we'll talk about in a second, and also using common assessments, particularly at the high school. Even though we have support in reading, the early literacy was more along the lines at the elementary level, but we still infused some reading supports for our students this year, which I'll talk about in a moment. And I do want to preface, people up here will speak, but a lot of this is the school side, and it helps them work on it. So what are we doing to close the achievement gap, the proficiency gap? We continually to develop a database with all of our students and some of the challenges they have. We look at everything from whether or not they are on an IEP. Do they have a 504? Are they receiving adjustment counseling? Are they involved in a program? Do they have a mentor? Are there other extenuating circumstances that are involved in the family? Is a family dynamic? Is it a challenge? We try to support our students not only in the content areas, but socially, emotionally as well, to make sure that they're performing the best that they can at all times. Always challenging, always a moving target, but we continue to work towards that. This year, through the generosity of the school committee supporting this, we were able to hire a reading specialist that worked with about 30 of our students. Already did some pre-assessments in the beginning of the year. Obviously, we're not finished with this academic year, so I don't have the data to report. But we do have some students that participated in writing contests who have actually won. We have students making significant progress, not only in that individual class called ELA Foundations, but also extended into some of the other classes where I believe we had 3 or 4 that she was recommending, the reading specialist was recommending no longer needs that service. So again, part of it is confidence-based and motivation-based and getting the students to buy in, but I would say that reading specialist did an outstanding job with the small number of students that she was working with this year. So I want to thank the committee and central office for supporting that, and hopefully that's something that we could think about continuing next year. We continuously use data to analyze our programs. As I talked about the Bridge program, the freshman seminar, English, math, and science support. These are classes that we continue to put in place. Sometimes they're offered during an elective block for a half a year, depending on the subject, to get our students ready for MCAS. And then finally, work with students in the earlier grades. I alluded to the calculus project. And then increase technology into all of our classrooms. And we do have mobile units where we have carts of Chromebooks, again, from the capital budget to the Copeland Foundation and also the school budget. We were able to buy a lot of technology over the last few years. Our students are using Chromebooks. We're also the beneficiaries of this beautiful facility right here. That is a couple of electives during the day, working with school committee member Becky Padera and Mike Lynch. Mike Lynch training Sean LaPresti, one of our technology teachers. So we're also talking about changing some of our technology requirements because students are growing up with that technology in their hands and we can no longer keep up with them. We do have a student support team that's helping us out with some of the technology because they're much better at it than we are. So the technology piece is constantly evolving and hopefully we keep up with it. The next thing, the proficiency gap in science. This is the second year that we're working on revising the curriculum to meet the new standards. Our science teachers are doing a great job with that. We utilize the half days to do some of that professional development to make sure that that's in place. We increased the use of problem solving and analytic thinking skills and inquiry-based skills in all of our science classes. And I would say, particularly the biology classes, just having a conversation with some of those biology teachers, they're really, really doing a great job. I talked about increasing the technology. Mr. Kelly, who I'm going to turn it over to, we're introducing new engineering courses that we're going to be offering next year. Mr. Kelly and the team visited schools to see what their programs were. I believe it was Canton High School. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So our science department head and several teachers and myself made a couple of site visits to Newton North High School and Canton High School to sit in on several different versions of engineering courses, robotics courses, and something called green engineering. Our plan is to develop an introductory engineering course for next school year, which will run as a 1-semester course, run it twice during the year with one of our current science teachers taking the lead. We've investigated a few different curricula that are out there. Currently, we're working with the Museum of Science to go through a book that they've produced, which has student workbooks and a lot of materials ready to go. So we're very excited about the prospect of introducing the first engineering course, and hopefully with support, growing a program into something very significant, similar to our neighbors in Newton and Canton.
And thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kelly used a statement, we're planning on it. We already started the planning. We spoke to Superintendent Gormley. We're moving classrooms around this summer to accommodate these new courses. So we're really excited about it. The teachers are on board. And when I say teachers, not just science teachers, when you're shifting classes, everyone's on board and they're excited about it as well. Common assessments. This year, our humanities department, English and history courses, they're using academic merit. They did pre-assessments back in September. We're slated to do some post-assessments this month, actually next week. So hopefully we'll net some different results there. But what I like about this program is the teachers get the opportunity to look at the students' assessments. They're writing assessments blindly. So it's not like I could look at James Jett's score, who's a struggling student, and then look at Mr. Kelly with his name on it, who excels, and then I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt of the points. They correct these exams, these assessments blindly, and then once that's done, they come together and they have a discussion about it. And the whole goal is to calibrate how they score, how they grade, the feedback, and they have a constant discussion about it. And I think that we're all going to benefit from this, to giving students some meaningful feedback without any bias or without any favoritism put in it. Not that people do it, but obviously when you're grading essays and you're judging people's opinions and things like that, it could come with a little bit of bias. So I talked about the academic merit. I'm gonna have Mr. Puglia talk a little bit about what they're doing in math with some unit exams.
Well, as far as math goes and what we're doing in math, we meet every week, pretty much either as a department or course specifically. And we always are constantly taking a look at assessments and what we did well, what we didn't do well, questions that should be omitted, questions that need to be changed, so on and so forth, in order to really drive the curriculum and push ourselves forward. We have a lot of just regular collaboration time where we might pop into someone's classroom and just say, hey, you know, what are we gonna do? Or what do you wanna do here with this? How do we make this better? How can we improve what we're doing? And we're constantly doing that. We do that with common assessments, like I stated. We take a look at our instruction. We make sure, like I said, that our instruction is well run and that our classroom, you know, obviously is well run to make sure that we can educate the kids as best as possible. We also offer SAT prep classes. James talked about the calculus project. This is the first year that we're going to run 3 cohorts of incoming 8th graders, incoming 9th graders, and incoming 10th graders. And I think the most important thing that we've done this year is we finally have our full complement of integrated math classes. We're running course 1, course 2, course 3, and we actually have 3 sections of course 3, an on-level, an honors, and an accelerated, which we started the integrated program about 5 years ago. And with Park coming on board, and we thought Park was going to be an issue, so we had to revamp our integrated program. And we're finally now at the point where we have pretty much a smooth transition from kids taking course 1 to course 2, course 3. And again, in those meetings, that's really the main focus of our meetings is how do we make sure that we're hitting all of the standards in course 1, and how do we make sure that we hit all the standards in course 2 and in course 3, and how do we differentiate and make sure that the kids who are struggling, how do we get them help? You know, do we offer after school help? Does one teacher do it for course 1 week, or so on and so forth? So those are the things that we're constantly looking at.
So thank you. And one thing we never put up here, and I think is very important to state, I'm proud to be the principal working with such dedicated faculty and staff. If you were to drive by this parking lot at 6 o'clock or 6:30 in the morning, there are teachers in this building that are providing support in having students check in with them. You come in this parking lot in the afternoon at 4 o'clock and 4:30, there are teachers here working with students. If not, they're also going to see students in their extracurricular activities, whether it's a club or a sporting event. So that's the kind of level, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, because I think oftentimes it's the principal or a few other people that come before the committee and talk about it, but there's a whole team of people that are working extremely hard to deserve a lot of credit, and sometimes it goes unsaid. So I want to put that plug in for our faculty and staff, and that's from everyone, from food service to the custodian. Everyone plays a huge role in the success of Milton High School. So let's talk about some of the highlights beyond the data. Jessica Parsons, Jessica Jabo, she got married, I'm sorry. She's a member of our math team. She was actually working on a digital literacy for the state in computer science. So when that booklet comes out, she's helping to shape the course of not only Milton High School, but the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. She will be recognized in that. We had a student, Marae Dumbrook, who won 2 national medals. I think that you probably heard about that in Superintendent Mary Gormley's email blast. She won a gold medal for her paint and weighting, and a silver medal in inundated. One of the big things, and I'm going to turn it over to a couple of people to talk about this. One of the big things we did, even though it wasn't this year, we administered a youth risk behavior survey, and the results were revealed back in November 4th, in front of the school committee, and then again in January in front of the Milton Substance Abuse Coalition Prevention Coalition. So there's been a lot of talk about this, and we always say we use the data for content areas, academics, but this is data that we work on to get feedback to help our students out socially, emotionally, and what they're doing in terms of their decision making. So I want to turn it over to Vicki McCarthy, who is a member of the coalition, but also a member of our site council, and she could talk a little bit about some of the work that we're doing, working collaboratively with the coalition.
Thank you very much. And I know many of you here, so it's fabulous to be here. I've been on the site council since its inception back in 1993, either as a parent or as a community member. And actually, my proudest thing, Kevin, is Kevin Donahue was on the site council with me. He was senior at Milton High that year, Kevin. He was fabulous. And he took on the principal because he had some things that he wanted to say, and he said them. Fabulous. And so now, as a school committee member, I mean, a really proud moment for me. I've seen you grow up, Kevin. That's great.
Can you tell us more about that? What was his problem? What was the issue he took on? I don't want to know about that.
Great. So the Milton High School, Milton Substance Abuse Coalition Partnership is what James asked me to comment on. And of course, we're into our, all right, great. Into our second year of this particular endeavor. And it's thanks to one of our community partners, Blue Hills Community Health Alliance. Now, James is always saying, well, where are these little grants coming from and what are we doing? Well, I've co-chaired the Blue Hills Community Health Alliance with Alejandro Rivera for a number of years. And so I'd always bring to the different committees, well, there's a little bit of money. Well, 2 years ago, there was $1,500, and Caroline Kinsella, the health director in town, and I wrote a grant for the $1,500. Well, it was really going to be given to us as long as we said we could do something positive. So 9 communities out of the 13 of the Blue Hills Community Health Alliance didn't have coalitions, and so we all got $1,500 to start one. And I have to give a shout out to BID Milton because they are playing a huge part in this. So between the Milton Public Schools, our community hospital, and the community members. Years ago, we had a program called ADAPT, Alcohol and Drug Abuse for Parents and Teens, probably in the 80s. But, it's hard to keep these things going. So now this is our attempt, and we're 2 years into it. And then, of course, the really exciting thing is last year, at the end of our $1,500, the Blue Hills Community Health Alliance came out with the first ever multi-year grant, which is $110,000 over the 3 years. And our own Lori Stillman, a former school committee member, said, hey, listen, this is a phenomenal opportunity. And she wrote the grant. And 3 grants were given, one to the town of Milton, one to the National Alliance on the Mentally Ill, big organization, and the other to Quincy Community Action Program their Head Start program. So, you know, it's really pretty nice that we got that through that particular thing. So you've mentioned some of the things, James, already. Well, actually, the first thing you mentioned to me is something that you haven't said yet, focus groups. Big success. We had focus groups at Pierce Middle School, and we had focus groups at Milton High School. I was at the middle school, and not that I was one of the people in the room, I kind of helped convene it, and someone from BU came, and Annalise Davis from Bay State Community Service, another great community partner, and actually the prevention program at Bay State Community Services, which is based in Quincy. Bill Spinks, our very own Bill Spinks, was the director of prevention. He just retired, but now he's coming to our coalition meeting, so, you know, we're really very fortunate. Another great Milton person involved, Stefano Keel, who was the head of prevention services for the state, Department of Public Health, Bureau of Substance Abuse Services, and he's also on our coalition. So we're very, very fortunate. But the focus groups, you know, we'll be hearing a lot more about the results of those. I've heard great things. My daughters were down at the ice cream shop in Lower Mills, and they said, Mom, some kids from the high school came in saying how great the focus groups were, and they hope they had more of them. So, I mean, it's amazing, you know, what you hear out there. Parent survey, we're right in the middle of that. Phenomenal, phenomenal. The superintendent has sent it all out to everybody, and you're still sending it out. It's online until the 10th of this month. Many of you might have gotten the message from Lori yesterday. We're getting close to the 700 surveys that she put as our goal. 700 parent surveys. Isn't that amazing? We also sent them out to Fontbonne Academy, to Milton Academy, BC High. I mean, so you're going to get a big cross-section. I know, remember, James, you saying, that's great, because it's not like, well, here is the data from the Milton High School. No, it's youth in the town of Milton. So that's really exciting. So a lot of good things happening there. You asked me to mention the Women's Club donation. You know, as many of you know, the Women's Clubhouse was sold, and so now the money is being distributed. Tough stuff. Very tough stuff. And Lori asked for $10,000. Well, they decided they'd give us $2,200. That was pretty good. But then they said the part that was going to be supervised by the Board of Health that they would support. So that was nice. BID Milton gave us $7,500, so they really, made that, bridged the gap. So we're really fortunate in those kinds of things. And, it asked about experience and knowledge of community grants, Blue Hills Community Health Alliance, BID Milton, Bay State Community Services, lots of those kinds of things, Department of Mental Health. And you mentioned about professional development. Well, that's probably my weak point, but I try, if I hear things, I let people know. South Shore Hospital does a whole youth connections program, and so I kind of send out when I get things. Workforce development also does things, so, well, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff there. So it's really exciting. And of course, the superintendent has mentioned in the past, we have a great relationship with the Norfolk County Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition leaders, and the Norfolk County DA has been wonderful to us in a myriad of ways, all different kinds of things. We lost Ryan Walker. Remember, I brought him to the Milton Health and Wellness Subcommittee. He went to the state. Now he's working for, prevention at the state level. Wonderful young man. It's a real loss because he kept us on track and he kept wonderful minutes. So, but we still have that connection, and Dave Morgan, who's a pharmacist, is stepping up to the plate, so we'll keep working with them. The other thing, I didn't realize you passed things out earlier. I don't know if somebody could just pass those out. This is the up-and-coming thing, and I know, Superintendent, you've received it. I think, Mr. Jett, you received it, and I think Karen Spalding did. I'm hoping that there's someone in our school community that will be coming, of course, now that I passed, oh, here, I've got it here. We're meeting at Braintree Town Hall. Let's see, I hope they told us here.
April 14th?
April 14th, yes. It's a luncheon meeting, 11:30 to 1:30. Now, this is another exciting thing that's going on. You've been invited to attend a substance abuse prevention collaborative advisory meeting. Braintree, Quincy, Milton, and Weymouth are working together because it's problem for everybody, you know, and let's work together, find best practices. So a lot of great resources here. And so Mayor Sullivan's hosting us all. I did hear from David Burns, our selectman, and he's going to try to be there. John King was right on board, the first thing, our deputy chief. So hopefully, they're hoping that, and Lori Stillman said, what about the students? Well, I asked Alejandro Rivera, he said, hey, if there's a few students and if Stephanie Omobono wants to accompany, wouldn't that be great? And they'll be there and letting everybody know what we're doing and how we can learn from each other and support each other. So, so if anybody can go, please RSVP and let them know, and we'll all be there. I'll be there on the 14th. So, thank you.
Before,
So-
do you mind? If Kristen Bagley-Jones had a work commitment, but if she were here, she would interrupt your presentation. So in her place, I want to recognize Vicki McCarthy. Vicki has dedicated her life to the town and health and wellness, and she is a faithful member of Kristen Bagley-Jones and Ms. Padera's the school committee subcommittee on wellness. And James said, you don't give yourself enough credit that you are a liaison and funnel all of this information, and you have made a difference in the Milton Public Schools. So for your volunteer efforts and using your expertise, I want to thank you for what you've done and you continue to do, and with the freshness that you bring to every new initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I could close that section with one more plug for the parent survey, because we've heard from the students, we had the focus groups, now we have to hear from the parents in the community. Obviously, if students are engaging in risky decision or behavior after school and on weekends, it's very difficult for the school personnel alone to do this, so it is a collaborative effort. We keep referring to the tripod, the students, the family, and the school. So we need to make sure all three legs are standing firm together, balancing off one common goal. I do want to say one more initiative that's not on here that came to light in a school committee member, Sheila Varela, who mentioned about a distractology opportunity. We do have one. It's not in this presentation. I apologize for omitting that, not on purpose, but in a week in June, we're going to have a trailer that's going to be out in the back of the school on this back lawn. It's a trailer that provides like a car simulation, so with speed, distance, they put goggles on and everything, and they show you how quick or how quickly something unfortunate can happen if you're distracted, whether it be texting or under the influence. They have what they call bear goggles, so to speak. So it gives you that. And trust me, I did it a couple of years ago in the back, and it's very difficult to do. You think it's very easy, and you find yourself getting off course. That is another thing that we're doing to support our students, because we do have a number of high school students that are driving to and from school and also after school and on the weekends. We did have a chemical health awareness night. I'm just going to put that plug in there. We talked about it at the school committee meeting early in the year. We had about maybe 400 and something student athletes and parents in the audience. It was kind of mandatory but not mandatory, but we'll hope to make it mandatory and hopefully do it every season. We had a Women Up conference that we were really proud of. We had successful women in the community that came in and talked to the community, students and adults, about some of their trials and tribulations to their path, their road to success. I thought it was really empowering for our young girls to hear, but I also thought it was empowering for our young boys to hear, who are one day going to grow up and be men and looking to hire people in their profession. So I think it was a nice balance. I talked a little bit about the labs and things like that. Now we're going to talk about success outside of the classroom. This was a monumental year for our football team. I said it at the meeting the other day, and for a lot of programs here. Our football team went 11-1, the most successful season since 1963. One of the things I like about it that you may not hear all the time, it really brought the alumni back. This was my first year that I was meeting people from the class of 64, 65. I had people writing from across the country talking about it, and I wore this jersey, and this is what, it was really a community building effort. However, I will say that season in that sport is not the only sport that we have at the high school, but it set the bar and tone for every other sport. We had two girls, Mrs. Scannell, we had Capolis, who scored 100 goals, and they're not even seniors yet. 100 points already. We have Laura Hill, who's a short distance behind with 90-plus goals. Success. And I boast and I talk about the girls' hockey team, and I'm going to say it here again, and I say it every time. Euland Rink is only a hop, skip, and a jump in the high school. Euland Rink doesn't have that many bleachers. I am saying that those bleachers need to be filled every time the girls play because I think that they're very talented. Most recently, the success with our 4x800 team, the girls, they came in 6th. Many of you may not know this, but if you watch the link, if you watch the race on the link, I don't think there was another team in the frame in the heat that they ran in. They were not in the frame, and Maura Downs and I have had this conversation a couple of times. We think if they were in a different heat and they were running against faster students, they would have pushed themselves even more. Inherently, you kind of slow down because you don't want to burn yourself out. But even still, they came in 6th place, shaving 19 seconds off the school record, and they became All-Americans. If you're in the top 6, you're listed as All-Americans. We think that is great. The girls' long-distance medley came in 9th place, nothing to be ashamed about. You're talking about the nation. And there were some teams there from Canada. So I don't know why they say the nation, but it's also the nation and Canada. And they shaved 20 seconds off of the school record. However, both times in both of those events were the fastest time ever run by any team in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So they deserve some huge credit, and give credit to Tom Shaw. I didn't put it up here, but one of our students, Charles Smith, he's a freshman. He came in 2nd in the nation as a freshman, against freshmen. 2nd in the nation, and arguably he could have peaked and won 1st place, but he stumbled a little bit. He leaned forward a little too early at the finish line. So we have some promising students here in addition to these future problem solvers that we just heard. I don't want to bog you down with a lot of them. We have a mixture of some success from last year and some success from this year. If you recall, we were going to do our presentation back in January, so we wanted to boast on some of those newer highlights. But I will say this, we continue to participate in our robotics club. Our turkey trotters came in 1st place, raising money last year with our best buddies. I think that's huge. This is inclusive of our students who have special needs. And we have an overwhelming amount of participation with our students, and I think they do a great job. Our debate team continues to compete against schools across the state and also up in Connecticut. Sometimes they go to Yale to compete. And then our calculus program, we talked a little bit about it. Our boys rugby team continues to succeed. They won the state championship last year by beating Brookline High School. I'll say it again, by beating Brookline High School, and probably one more time, Brookline High School. Our varsity team won gold in our crew. And our girls, they were successful in their performance in the bronze. Our tennis team made it to the 1st round of the MIAA Division II championship, and the boys team qualified last year for the Division II. I shared some of those spring sports because we haven't started the season yet, but I think it was important to know. And most notably and most recently, we had 9 students that got national recognition or state recognition. We had 4 state champions. We had 4 second place winners and 1 third place winners. All of these students will be traveling to participate in the national conference in Atlanta this summer. This Friday, leaving early in the morning, as early as 5:30, I believe it is, 5:30 in the morning, we have our Life Smarts team is going to be traveling to Denver to compete in the nationals. So, and I'm proud to say the work of A.J. Melanson, Nancy Michaels, who's out right now, but Paul Ehrenberg, who is assistant. For the last couple of years, they've done a tremendous job preparing our students to compete not only on the state level, but nationally as well. So we're looking for big things, and hopefully we can bring home a national winner from these individuals that are up here. That does not conclude our presentation. What I do want to have is I want to have our student representative talk about her experience a little bit so you get to know her, and then we'll let our parents talk about their experience on the site council and some of their contributions to that as well. And we'll start with our students.
My name's Tanya. I'm a freshman, and I'm class representative along with Janelle. We recently just had a fundraiser. It was a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. We raised almost $200, which is really good. Yeah.
I don't want to cut her short. She's being modest. She's very vocal, very confident, very self-assured. She approaches me. They came and met with me and said, Mr. Jett, we want to do this tournament, it's March Madness. I never turn students down, but I say it's your job to do the work. They went out, they did the work. Originally, they didn't have enough teams to participate. They came back. I said, I'm going to have to cancel it. You guys need to go out and work. They went out and recruited players, and I got to tell you, I went to the event, very successful. Even before it's over, they approach me in the bleachers. Mr. Jett, what do you think? Anything we need to tweak? What do you think? So they're already thinking about this for next year. So she's being a little modest, but they are definitely go-getters. And I do want to commend you because I think that was a very unique opportunity for our students. And it coincided with March Madness, the NCAA tournament that Superintendent Mary Gormley is very, very in tune with.
My name is Mary Scott. I'm a parent. I have a senior at Milton High, a sophomore at Milton High, and an 8th grader at Pierce. And my kids all went to Tucker, and some of them were problem solvers at Tucker and really loved it. I think the thing that I've really appreciated the most about Milton High is, from my perception and my friends we used to have a lot of dinner parties at Tucker, just the parents, so we could get to know each other, and then you'd know if your kid wanted to go play at somebody's house, you already knew the family. And so through the years, we've all kind of stayed sort of connected to each other. And Milton High is a place that people can find a place to fit. You know, if your kid, my now senior, came here and the upperclassmen in the music department, she's a tuba player, and the band just embraced her. And in fact, my kids are in jazz band right now. But it's just been, that was a launching pad for her to, you know, get into the tech club and do lights and sound when she was at Pierce for the plays. And she didn't like to act, but she loved to do everything behind the scenes. And there were so many opportunities for her to do that. And, you know, with the drama club, and she's been on the robotics team since she was at Pierce. And, you know, she's the tech club president now. But there's just been a lot of different ways to belong. For my sons, they also are very involved in music, but they love the sports. Just a big, huge, there's a big cohort of people who do a lot of different things that they have an opportunity to touch and be friends with. Whether it's football really isn't their thing, they're more into like comics or poetry club, or, you know, I just appreciate how many different places students can find that they can love. And I also have really appreciated how open the administration is about, you know, things that parents see and notice. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, Vicki.
Hi, I'm Veronica Guerrero Macia. I'm the parent of a senior and a 7th grader at Pierce, and my seniors here at the high school. This is going to be my last time on school site council. I'm moving on and starting my own school. But I have really appreciated the Milton Public Schools. I can't think of a better place for my daughter. She has grown from a quite timid kindergartner who we weren't quite sure how successful she was going to be. We were really quite worried. To an extremely successful senior. She's right now has just applied for a National Science Foundation research scholarship for college that looks like she may be getting. It's an $8,000 scholarship a year that she may be getting for 4 years. So that to me is phenomenal, that Milton was able to nurture this child and help this child turn into a confident young lady from a very shy young lady. So I do appreciate everything that Milton has done for our children. And I do agree that we do have a lot of opportunities. Children really can grow in whatever direction they want. My daughter likes choral music and swimming, and we never had a swim team. And one of our parents, Eileen Heller, was very dogged in getting us a swim team by the time her daughter was a senior here, and her daughter's a senior. So opportunities like that, opening up rowing club and swimming, and now we're looking at volleyball for boys. It's just amazing to me that if parents bring forth the idea and they're willing to do the work, that this town is receptive to new ideas and receptive to us growing and enriching our environment for our children. I do appreciate it.
And that's the last comment that we would make, and I would just again reiterate, I think Milton High School is a great place to be, not because of the individuals up here, but because of the work of the students and the support that we get from the families. We just learned the other day one of our students not only got into Harvard, but got into Columbia, Johns Hopkins, Amherst, and Wesleyan. We had another student that got into Johns Hopkins, Dartmouth. So we have students that are going on or have the opportunity to go on. It's their choice to your Ivy League schools and your best universities and colleges across the country. So again, Milton High School is a very successful place, but it doesn't just happen with a few individuals. I say it's a combination of elementary, middle, and high school in the support of the community. So thank you.
Mr. Walker.
Well, I had a few questions that I was planning to ask, but I don't want that to take away from what I'm going to say next. So I'm going to send the questions to you and the superintendent. Just keep doing what you're doing. This is very, very impressive. And if you take even one step back and look at, as you talked about, just the range of opportunities that we have from our students of all different backgrounds, types, interests, it's quite impressive. And by any measure, sports, intellectual sports, academic performance, music, the arts, it's just, we have students that are excelling in every one of those areas. So never mind the questions, keep doing what you're doing.
So I will say thank you, and I'll leave you on one note. We had a new student this year, came in as a junior, didn't have a club to go into, was interested in biomedical, the biomedical field, and we had a science teacher, Linda Stefanik, who, again, student comes to me, can we do a club? You do the work. Went out, recruited a teacher. They have a club that meets on a regular basis, and they're doing some great work in that club, and she's doing it as a volunteer. So these are the type of teachers, faculty, and staff that we have in these buildings, and I think that should be noted as well.
Ms. Verrill.
I know I came in late. I just wanted to say it's a great presentation of what you've highlighted of all the successes. I want to echo what Mary said. I am a parent of a sophomore up here, and it's very interesting to me. I wondered, is it just Milton High, or is this the new wave of kids? In the
just Milton High.
Yeah, I'm saying just Milton High, but what I love about Milton High, and I brag about all the time, is that you do have a kid who is a gold. Let me put it this way: I'm late. That many of you know that I was up. We're doing a little opening presentation and featuring so many of the students who have achieved such great accomplishments this year, and I'm kind of co-directing it with Mr. Elliott. It was a lot of fun up there at Lombardo's, and one of our students, is the Gold Key National Artist, and she's also one of the track stars. And you're kind of saying, okay, where do we put you, and how do we get you from over featuring your artwork to then also featuring you with the track, the track runners. So, and I just see that all the time, that some kids, my own daughter will say, well, yeah, I can't do the musical because, he's got to do football, but they excel in both areas, and you're constantly seeing somebody who's on the robotics team who's also a great pitcher, and somebody who is, a phenomenal artist who's also doing crew. So, and a stellar student on top of that. So I just love that about the Milton community, that kids can soar in all different areas. They can find their niche, but it's okay to be on the robotics team and be a running back on the football team. And I just really love that the acceptance factor is good here. So it's great. And coming from the little kind of dry dress rehearsal run through that we had, all the kids that are mentioned in this Beyond the Highlights were there. A large portion of them were. And this was only dress rehearsal and, an empty ballroom. But it was really powerful to see you know, all of these artists and athletes and musicians and singers who are so accomplished and have won states and districts and nationals and all these accolades, and then they're coming together and you kind of see them in this spotlight moment. So those of you that want to go to the foundation dinner, it's going to be quite pulling at the heartstrings. But it was just, it was poignant at the end to just see such a great group of kids just excelling in so many different things, representing our high school. But to echo what you guys have said, it's really just our school, because, you know, I've seen some of them, you remember them when they were at Collicott or Tucker or Pierce, and now they're these, you know, accomplished young men and women who are juniors and seniors at the high school. So it was just a nice moment. So it's nice to come from that to this and kind of, you know, see it presented. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Donahue.
Sort of echo my colleagues, continue doing your excellent work, and success starts at the top, and my thanks to you for captaining an excellent ship. Several other comments. I appreciate your vertical integration with Pierce in your calculus project. I think that shows excellent thinking outside the box. I'm very excited about the engineering course. I'm looking forward to seeing how that sort of unfolds and what grows from there. My thanks to your English and history teachers for being willing to look at how they're assessing their students and employing the academic merit program. Is that it? That it's appreciated that, you know, we can sort of piggyback on their assessments and use the data that they're generating to help us sort of guide policy. So my thanks to them to being open to that program. My only question for you had to do with the early bio exam that you have. I didn't know if you're thinking of sort of expanding on that model or not messing with success at your other levels, other exams.
It's kind of interesting because you start getting it. We have always done fairly well. A couple of years back, our science scores were a little challenging for us, but we also have to be mindful of test anxiety. We have AP test day. Like last year, I think we tested almost every week, all the way up until from I want to say March or April, all the way up to June. And so we get that we want to assess the students, but it's something that we can think about, but I worry about that by pushing all the exams back. It's really tough when you're trying to manipulate the schedule, a rotating schedule that's working with AP exams, MCAS. Back then we had PARC. Thankfully, we don't have PARC this year at the high school level, but also the end of the year exams. And then our seniors take their exams in about 6 weeks. Yeah, in about 6 weeks. So trying to negotiate that is a challenge, but it doesn't mean that we can't do it. But what we like to do is make sure it's done in the classes. So it's a possibility. It's definitely possible.
Well, you know, and as I said, there's no sense in messing with success. And if you found a model that works in certain areas but not in others, then I think that's great. And then let's see, what was my last comment? Well, I think I'll pass for now. But again, excellent job. Thank you.
Ms. Padera.
So we have a biomedical club now too?
Yes, we do.
That's incredible. So one of my questions before the parents started talking was what, you know, we're looking a lot more, and the state is too, on social emotional learning, and what part of our curriculum inspires that love of learning, not just tracking students and how they're doing in each subject, but are we inspiring a love of learning in those subjects? It might not be every subject for every student, but certain subjects that really bring them to school. The fifth grader that was here that you saw who said, I couldn't wait for Tuesdays. That's kind of what we're looking more, or, you know, a lot of people are looking more at, like, what gets those students to school. But then the parents started talking about how, you know, there's really something, we really do have something for everyone. And so, and you said at the beginning of your conversation, your talk, Mr. Jett, about looking to make sure that we have students involved in at least some things to get them here. So I think that's important. My question kind of related to that is, when we're looking at some of those students that we feel like are in trouble, absences seem to always be one of those things that, you know, you look at. If a student's absent a lot, or do we look at that anyway? Do we have people working with students who we see continuously absent and why, and making sure that they don't fall behind or fall out of our reach.
We absolutely look at that. We have a student support team with guidance, adjustment counselors, the administration, school resource officers, school nurse, in our alternative ed program that meet every 2 weeks, and we profile students that have that. Now, I'm going to embarrass them. Sometimes Mr. Kelly and Mr. Mack get in their own cars, and they go and they do home visits and talk to students who aren't making it to school on time. Not that many, but oftentimes there are other issues that are preventing them from coming in there. Sometimes it's social, emotional, sometimes it's anxiety, whatever the case may be. But we do have something, but we lose a little bit at the high school level. At the elementary and middle school, you could use the Quincy District Court. You could file a CHINS, a child in need of a service. Well, now it's a CRA, a child requiring assistance. But as soon as a child hits 16, Quincy Court, or close to 16, 15 and a half, they're not that proactive. So it's a little challenging. So we do sit down and we talk with parents, we talk with students. What are you interested in? How can we support you? We just have one of those meetings today. What are you interested in? And we're trying to find out ways on how we can push more of what they're interested in to the front and support the students in the back. We do have the Take 5 room that's sponsored in part by BID Milton, which is students get a pass if they're dealing with an issue, whether it's anxiety, whether it's a home issue. I hate to bring this up, but we utilize that a lot after the unfortunate death of one of our students, Kate Lisa Etienne. A lot of students access that. So again, we have these programs in place, but once students get in the building, I think we could support them. But again, it goes back to reaching out to those families and trying to meet them where they are and helping them push the kids or helping them get the kids to the building. It is very difficult if they're not making it in the building or they're making it in the building late, but we're trying to find ways on how we could kind of meet them in the middle of that bridge.
That's fantastic. And then I just had a couple other questions. The AP courses, I think Mr. Kelly said we offer 20. Are there any that we're, looking at, are there any others that we were looking at that, didn't quite fit into the schedule or that, we're looking at? Or are we pretty much covered?
We have a student, Harry Kong, that piloted a lot of them on his own.
I believe that.
I will say this. Again, it has to be interest-based. Superintendent Gormley is very mindful of the taxpayers' dollars. We're always talking about class sizes and things like that. What we try to do is look at those, and we'll run them if there's enough interest in them. But it's very difficult to support a class with 3 students in it if it's an interest. So we have a partnership, and I will say this, if you look across the vicinity in the Milton area, we probably offer more AP courses than any private or public or parochial school in the vicinity. If not the top, we're definitely tied with the top. And so, but we do have a partnership. If it's something we don't offer, we can work with Milton Academy. We have Milton Academy students come here and take AP exams.
Oh, that's great.
And then we have some students that do it on their own. They feel confident enough and they take the exam. And I wasn't kidding. Harry Kong is one of our students who did that.
I did not take you as jesting on that one. I believe it.
He did 5 on his own and passed them all. Yes.
It does not surprise me.
We have an AP course running this year as well, AP Computer Science, which has to run for a year without the exam, but next year we're hoping that's an accredited course.
Oh, perfect.
And we'll run independently of AP Computer Science.
So 21. Okay, and then just my last question, I was just curious. The language students, the 100% passing, how many students is that total? In that,
I can get that.
You don't have to have a perfect number. Like, you don't know.
Enough to run.
Is it a lot, or is it just...
It's AP French, AP Spanish.
AP French, AP Spanish, AP Latin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, in the entire enrollment of those AP classes, there's at least one section of each of those languages, so we're probably talking close to 90 to 100 students.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So, anyways, great job. I third or fourth keep doing it. I think we're just doing so well in so many things. And I did watch that tape, as Moira knows, about the track team. And every one of those girls ran there. Even though they were ahead by half a track length, everyone ran like someone was chasing them. I mean, didn't they? They did. They were incredible. So it was a good cap. And I'm going to try to make a girls' hockey game this year.
Thank you.
Like Dr. Donahue, I am a proud alumnus of the Milton High School Site Council, although apparently I didn't have quite the impact of a young Kevin Donahue.
Many do.
James, I have one question, substantive question, and that's about the reading specialist. Last year, I think we funded that on a short-term basis and not on a continual, an operational basis year to year. Can you discuss the importance of that on an ongoing basis, and what are your conclusions about whether that should be short-term or whether that should be ongoing?
This ELA Foundations class is what we called it. We try to stay away from any name that closely resembled anything of support. And basically, I think this class is very important. It instilled the kids the confidence. It goes back, some of these kids really enjoyed it, and it inspired them to have that success trickle over into other classes. I think it's something that is desperately needed at the high school level. I think is very, it's very difficult for me to stomach to say that we needed a reading specialist for 1 year, and then that reading specialist did something, performed a miracle, and everyone's reading at the appropriate grade level. I think it's something that I talked to Superintendent Gormley offline. I think it's something that we should continue or look or explore ways in which we could continue that, because again, the target is always moving. We have students that are going to come up next year that may need that additional support. We still have students this year that need that support, but there's only but so many. You didn't want to overload the teacher, so we capped the classes at 10 so you could have more individualized attention and focus areas. You can really delve into the needs and the support. So I think it's something that's desperately needed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the hope at the time was that if we had the groundwork laid and we had the additional resources in the lower grades, then it would filter up and it would be less of a desperate need on the high school.
We also got to be mindful that we have students that transition into school as
Right.
well.
Right.
That may not have that support that we had at the elementary level, so they can enter in at grade 6, 7, and 8.
Yep.
They can enter at 9, 10, and 11,
Yep.
and we still need to provide them with supports.
Yep. Thanks, James. And my other comment is that for all the success that you've identified, and including the success of Milton High School being named a Level 1 school, for all of that, the captain of the ship deserves a lot of credit, and he doesn't usually take that credit. So
I'm not going to take it down.
So
Brian McIntosh and Ben Kelly.
Thank you to James Jett as the captain of the ship. Certainly everyone else deserves the credit as well, but thank you to you for all the success that you've had over the years, and certainly last year. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Walker.
Just actually two more things. One is that as Chairman Zulus mentioned, the Level 1 designation is something that all of you should be extraordinarily proud of. For those of us who read the information folders that the superintendent provides us, that designation across the state is going down. So your ability to maintain that designation is a very big deal. So congratulations. Just one suggestion, brush up on your hockey terminology. Points is a combination of goals and assists. So.
And you know what, Mr. Walker, I appreciate that, and I say it all the time. Mr. Kelly is my man. He's a former player, former coach. He goes and we sit and talk about it.
Right.
I'm still jumping.
So
I'm still jumping when the puck hits the glass.
Ben,
so I'm still jumping. Nobody jumps but me.
Ben, just keep working with him, because so it doesn't mean 90 goals. It's assists and goals.
I forgot your son played hockey,
Yeah,
so
right.
so you had it in. Did you play hockey?
No.
Thank you, James.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
To close out our superintendent's report tonight, Ms. Varela did an excellent introduction. I want to remind the viewing public that the Milton Foundation for Education's celebration is Saturday night, and if you go online to the MFE site, you can purchase tickets through Friday. There will be no tickets sold at the door, and we should be particularly proud that the MFE's theme this year is recognizing all Milton Public School employees who have worked 20 years or more in the Milton Public Schools. And so this will be a very special night, and many school districts recognize staff 5, 20, 25 years. And again, the MFE stepped in where there was a void and really have given tremendous professional recognition to these teachers. So this listing is up on the web of all of these teachers. I wrote in my blast the other day that perhaps the viewing community and parents, students might take a moment and recognize these teachers who have served the students of Milton for 20 years and more. And the fund and need, I wish the high school was still here, but they might be here for another half hour if I had brought this up. The fund and need at this year's celebration is going to be completing the wellness center outside of the Copeland Fieldhouse. And so we're looking to really make some strides to really bring that cardio section up. And we had a meeting the other day, and we have plans to open up the wellness center in the cardio area to the community when the students aren't using it. So for the MFE and for all those teachers, staff, support people who have served this school district, we want to congratulate them. And I want to thank the MFE for dedicating this year's celebration to those people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gormley. Moving on to Section 5, the Chair's report. The first item is our schedule, school committee schedule. We briefly discussed at our last meeting whether we would need an additional meeting on the 13th. It's my view and the superintendent's view is that we do need a meeting on the 13th. There are a few things that will be pressing that we need to address, not the least of which will be an executive session regarding negotiation strategy with MEA and ASME and some additional matters as well. So I think we do need the meeting, and I open it up for discussion. If there's any.
Move approval of a meeting on the 13th.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Second, item 5B now. This relates to a request that the superintendent has received since our last meeting from Ms. Guerrero Macia, who was just here on the site council. Ms. Guerrero Macia has informed the superintendent and then through the superintendent me that that she is getting ready to open the doors of a new independent elementary school that she is founding in Milton, which is going to be called the Wilson Kindleyan School, and she has requested approval of the school committee. This school committee and this administration is in a bit of uncharted territory on this because this hasn't happened for a while. Under Chapter 76, Section 1 of the Mass General Laws, every child between the ages of 6 and 16 is required, subject to some other alternatives, to attend a public day school in the town in which that student resides, or, and this is the key language, or some other day school approved by the school committee. And so it is incumbent on the school committee under Chapter 76, Section 1, to approve some other day school in the town. The primary obligation of the school committee is to ensure that alternative school meets certain standards, so that the student attendance, compulsory attendance requirement under Chapter 76, Section 1 is met. Now, under the regulations, we had to go and do a little research here because this hasn't happened for a while. Under the regulations, it is incumbent upon the school committee to approve a private school when satisfied that the instruction in all studies required by law equals in thoroughness and efficiency and in the progress made therein that in the public schools in the same town. And so what the school committee needs to review generally is the thoroughness, efficiency, and progress of an alternative school. Now, in our current policies, I'll just pull this up. In our current policies, under policy LBC, all we have in our current policies is that in accordance with state law, the school committee will approve a private school when it is satisfied that the instructional program of the school equals that of the town of Milton's public schools in thoroughness, efficiency, and progress made. And so our policy parrots the language in the statute and the regulations. However, we do not have a policy which lays out the requirements that our school committee would look at, and the standards that our school committee would look at in determining whether an alternative school meets those three requirements. It is suggested that a school committee develop policies and procedures so that all schools who seek approval by the school committee are treated consistently and in the same manner. From my review, we do not at this time have those policies and procedures in place, and I think it's incumbent upon us to get those policies and procedures in place. Now, I don't know that absent having those policies and procedures in place, we can act to on this request. I suppose we could act on the request and act in a certain way, but then that would dictate, in order to treat other potential schools consistently, that would dictate that our policies would follow the standards that we set in reviewing this school, which would be really the tail wagging the dog, it seems to me. So it seems to me that it makes sense to get the policies and procedures in place. Now, the only issue may be the timing of the request from Ms. Guerrero Macia, and I'm supposed to speak with her tomorrow. I didn't have a chance this evening. Supposed to speak with her tomorrow on the timing restraints that she may have. She mentioned that she was hoping that it might be reviewed and approved before the town elections. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm going to talk to her tomorrow, and we'll give you more. So I've gone off at the mouth, but I wanted to try to describe what we've been looking at after we received this request, and I open it up for discussion. Mr. Walker.
So in addition to what would be some rather significant responsibilities on our part, what, if any, role does the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education play? And does that precede actions we might take or follow actions we might take?
My understanding is it does not have any role. The role is solely ours. That DESE has a role if it's a special education school providing special education programs, but this determination and the approval required for a day school in the town lies with us and not with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. That's my understanding. And certainly I can be corrected, but that's from my review of
what
I said. Yeah.
We'll trust your reading of that, but then that certainly makes it incumbent upon us to develop some very detailed criteria and requirements before we make this judgment.
And there are suggestions from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. There is a rather elaborate list of a two-page list of 11 different criteria with subparts that is suggested by DESE for review. And it's, as I said, I think that's probably the place to start.
Yeah.
But it is quite elaborate, and as I said, it's a bit of an uncharted territory for us, both the school committee and the administration here. So So I think you're absolutely right, Leroy. I think it's going to take a little bit of effort, and I really want to find out from Ms. Guerrero Maciel what her time restraints are, because she wants to get this up and running. But more to report on that later. Ms. Badera.
I also think that if we're going to look at this going forward as a policy, we might want to add, because it is recommended that, although not required by statute, school committees are encouraged to adopt a private school approval policy that incorporates a periodic review of previously approved schools, because now knowing that, that this authority or responsibility lies with us, I think that all schools we should have some kind of policy that periodically reviews schools, because things change, curriculums change, and we should look at that.
Anything else? Dr. Dunn.
Is there any institutional knowledge from the last time this occurred in town, either in administration or?
My understanding is no.
No.
But we haven't contacted all the possible suspects on that.
My tenure.
But not in Ms. Gormley's tenure, certainly. So, Mr. Sullivan.
I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
So you're reviewing or voting on whether to allow a private school in Milton?
We have to approve
Okay.
a private school, a private day school in Milton. That's right. That's right. My suggestion is that I'll be talking to Ms. Guerrero Maciel to find out what her time frame is. But my suggestion is that this is something for policy subcommittee to take up and start looking at, and starting with the DESE model for approval, and see if we can't get a policy in place, and so we can try to respond. Ms. Guerrero Maciel provided us with an extensive book of materials to review for this process. Now we just have to come up with the standards and review this in accordance with the standards. So I think the first place for this to go is policy subcommittee, and then I'll report next week on the timing as I hear it from Ms. Guerrero Maciel.
Well, I think that's exactly right, but I also think she should provide that information, a copy of that information for each school committee member.
Yep.
For starters.
Yeah, and I think we've asked for that. This was the copy that she may have provided one. Yeah, I think Ms. Gormley asked. So I think that's absolutely right, Laura. Okay, so we'll refer the matter of the policies and procedure to policy subcommittee, and I'll report on the timing next week. All right. Moving on. Here we go. Non-employee security badges. The issue has been raised about whether non-employees, including school committee members, should have security badges that allow the school committee member or non-employee to go into the school without going through the normal security procedures. So the issue having been raised, I put it on the agenda for discussion. So the floor is open. Ms. Padera.
So I think the security badges, while they're convenient, I think that I see the potential for issues. I mean, a lot of us are parents in the school, have kids in the school, and we have access to all the schools, which I don't think is necessary. Certainly convenient, but not necessarily necessary. It can allow us too much access. I don't think there's a real problem just checking in. I think it's the right procedure to check in the office with the new security in our schools. We usually have an appointment or a meeting. We check in, tell why we were there, instead of just kind of flying through. And also, I don't use my badges in the other schools, but we have to think about, new members coming on, and that can cause difficulties. We don't really have anyone in the schools that oversees us. We're kind of independent that way. We're volunteers, not employees, so therefore none of us are quarried or fingerprinted and go through the normal security checks. So I don't I certainly don't see the need for school committee members to have them. No other volunteers have them. So my feeling is that school committee members don't need them. I think it's just a convenience and has the potential for abuse or lack of security in our schools. So I would recommend that we not have the reissuance of security badges for school committee members is my feeling.
So let me add, just procedurally, it's my view that this is an operational matter that is within the purview of the superintendent, and the school committee can certainly make recommendations on this and can vote to make a recommendation, but I think my view, and others may have a different view, but my view is that this is really an operational matter over which the superintendent has authority.
I would agree with that.
Any other comments or questions?
So my thought is that if we were going to discuss the merits of this, that we do it at a time when our other two members are present, and perhaps more importantly, with new members coming on in roughly 3 weeks, that if we're going to make a recommendation or a policy that directly affects school committee members, that those individuals should certainly have the opportunity to be involved in that discussion. So my suggestion would be that we take this up again when we have a full school committee, with including the new members that will be here in a short, very, very short time. I'm still not sure where I am on whether at some point in the president's last year, whether he should be able to nominate a Supreme Court nominee, but with new members 3 weeks away, I think that they should certainly have the opportunity to be involved in the discussion. So that would be my suggestion.
Dr. Donahue.
Yeah, so I would second that, both on the substance of the matter and in terms of the procedure going forward, whether or not this is an issue that the administration is looking for some guidance on. I think that this could definitely wait several weeks for discussion if that's what is being requested.
So, so I think both comments are well taken. I think it does make sense to have the other members present. Perhaps we can discuss it and get their feedback next week as well. I think the existing members of the committee probably have some value add here, probably have something to say that may add value. When Ms. Badera mentioned the policy, we do have a policy that requires school committee members to inform the superintendent of visits to any school and to make arrangements for visits through the principals of those schools. And so, one could see where security badges might potentially be at odds with that policy. So I think it makes sense, and I can say, just in my own personal situation, I haven't used the badge. I don't use it. I always go through the security at the high school. So I think it makes sense to have the discussion. And so what I may do is put it on for the agenda for next week. Maybe we have a short discussion, and then if the decision at that point is, well, let's get the feedback from the new members, then so be it. We'll do it that way. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, please, Ms. Badera.
I think that, it's fine. It can always be taken up again, I guess, when new members come on, but I intend to work the last 2 meetings and vote on things that I find important, and I think my feedback and Mr. Zulz's feedback is just as important as in new members going forward, because if we find this important and that it has things that we should take action on, I don't see any reason to wait on everything until we have new members. The following year there might be 2 new members, who knows, or maybe they'll be the same committee. But I'm fine waiting until next week when we have a full committee to vote on it, because it does affect us all. But based on the feeling then, if people want to take a vote then on what we should do, then I think we should take a vote. And it can always be taken up as new members come on and old members go off. See no problem with that.
Okay, all right, we'll put it on the agenda for next week, have a discussion of it, and then see where it goes. Okay. Next item is the district-wide committees. Do we have Mr. Walker, is there an update on the inclusion task force? I included on the agenda, I'm not sure if...
Sure. We have met twice. This is a group that includes parents, members of the CPAC, which is the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, teachers, principals, and it is being led by Tracy Grandow. I think it's off to a very, very good start. There's a lot of excitement about everyone being included in the inclusion discussion. The first challenges that were given to the task force were to define inclusion and to identify a mission and an objective or a vision. And we've been working through those two things. Obviously, the timing was perfect with the PCG presentation and report. Every member was provided with that and was able to use that in some sort as a frame of reference and a discussion foundation. So I think it's going to be a great group that will have some recommendations that I think will be very helpful in terms of creating more inclusion. But I should say that everyone acknowledges that the arrival of Tracy Grandow has made a very significant difference both in tone and in substance. So I think it's off to a very good start, and I think we're planning on roughly a monthly meeting schedule.
Well, that's great, thank you, and certainly we have good representation from the school committee on that task force as well, so that's much appreciated. Dr. Donahue, do we have an update on the long-range strategic planning advisory committee?
Yes, so we have met once since our empanelment, and we spent the majority of that meeting discussing the previous strategic planning process and the fruits of that process and sort of where that process ended and what we could do to improve on that. So our next meeting will be next week, and I think we're looking forward to building on that discussion, sort of mapping out a plan of action for the next several steps.
That's great. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. Finance Subcommittee report. I'm not sure, Mr. Walker, if we have that on here, but I'm not sure if there is anything.
Nor am I, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, I don't know if we have a vendor warrant. Do we have a vendor warrant? Okay. All right, we do have a vendor warrant.
Dr. Pavlicek empowered and tutored.
You gonna be okay with it?
Assistant Superintendent.
We're seeking approval of warrant 41 dated April 7th, 2016, in the amount of $471,852.95.
Has anyone signed that warrant?
I have.
Would you mind making the motion?
Yeah, move.
Actually, before we do, is that the one that just came out this week?
Yes.
No,
it was Monday, wasn't it? Or no, it was last week.
Was it last week?
I'm not sure.
So
oh no, it was Monday.
I'm not sure that I've looked at it. That's the only thing.
So may I look for a minute?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I believe you all signed 39. The one you haven't signed is 41.
Yeah, I'd like to defer 41 until we.
I think that's a good
But
idea.
39 you'll approve because you've all signed it.
If we've signed it, I'm sure we'll
Okay,
approve.
so was that 39 that you gave us?
No, it's 41, right?
41.
So do we need to approve 39?
Yes.
It does need to be
Yes.
approved, but it's not here.
Well, no, but they've already all signed it. It takes two of us to take
Yes.
Dr. Pavlicek.
Okay. Warrant 39 in the amount of.
Sorry.
Dated March 24th, 2016, in the amount of $606.41.
Move approval of warrant number 39 dated March 24th, 2016, in the amount of $484,606.41.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. So we'll defer warrant 41 until next week. Anything further on the Finance Subcommittee report?
No, that should take care of it.
All right, Policy Subcommittee.
All right, so we have two matters this evening. The first is the second reading and vote on our homeschooling policy, and I'll remind you that the edit for that is in blue. The red strike through were prior edits that were subsequently removed. And it was to make explicit that students have the option of being homeschooled for a portion of the day and being schooled within the MPS for a portion of the day.
Move approval of homeschooling policy IHBG.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? And Dr. Donahue, this is exactly as it was at our last meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, no internal changes.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
All right. So the second policy is a security camera policy, policy ECAF. And this is a first reading of that policy. So this policy has grown out of several needs that we have. The first of which was it encouraged that districts with security cameras develop a policy for their use and review of that material. Several of our neighboring districts, it was requested of them at a certain point over the past year in one of their various state or federal level reviews. So we've been working on this policy using the draft policy of the MCAS and several of our neighboring districts' policies to inform our decision-making process. So I have it before you. It has gone before the police department, and we have received their input on the policy, so it has gone before them. But I would be interested in any edits or comments or thoughts that members of the board have, because I would like to make sure that this is a document that we get right. So with that, I'll open it to discussion on the policy or specifics.
Dr. Donahue, has this been reviewed by legal counsel as yet?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
Okay. And I know I've been neglectful to get back to you.
Right.
And I'll make sure that I will.
Or more to the point of this iteration has been reviewed by legal counsel.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think.
So we may want to have legal counsel review it before the second reading. Okay. Yes, that's right. Well, it's a different.
I know.
But a different legal counsel.
Good points.
I'm just
Humor is.
Say something else.
So yes, so I would appreciate a detailed read through by all of the members and thoughts that they have. Between now and the next meeting, I'm sure there'll be some changes that we'll incorporate to some of the wording and phrasing, but I would truly appreciate anybody's thoughts on the matter.
Okay.
Mr.
I have
Walker.
some edits.
Yes.
Under video recording, section 3, second sentence, only the superintendent or building principal, I would add, or the Milton Police Department will decide when and if viewing, then I would insert, of recorded footage needs to occur. Then the sentence below that, only individuals authorized by the superintendent or his or her designee, then I would insert, or by law enforcement representatives, parens, police, comma, district attorney, and so forth, close parens. And in the last paragraph on the first page, I would, where this is the second sentence from the bottom, an MEA and or AFSCME union representative I would say may be afforded the opportunity to review the recording contemporaneously. And I'm inserting that because as I look at what we're suggesting as examples of non-exigent circumstances, it's not clear to me where union representation might be required there, but may sort of straddles the fence rather than will. Then on the second page, I would insert a third sentence. This is the sentence, under video recording shall only be used in the setting of a suspected crime. I would insert video recordings will not be used for the performance evaluation of staff. And then finally, after a conversation with Dr. Donahue, I would suggest, this is the second paragraph from the bottom under section 4. I would, third line where it says for a maximum of 6 months, I would revise that to read 14 months. I can tell you my rationale if you want, but after some discussion with Dr. Donahue, that's what we settled on.
And that's conditioned on there being sufficient storage.
Yes,
that would
correct.
have been my question.
Yes,
correct.
But it's conditioned on that, so
Yeah.
presumably it would be less if
Right, the thought
if
was
there's
that
technology
that
that
if,
can allow it.
right, that if we could expand the storage space, storage capacity, that we would want to encompass a full school year and a summer.
Mhm.
So that's how we got it to the 14 months.
And I think those comments are well taken. I will point out that several of our neighboring districts have policies. All of them include sunset provisions for the extent to which districts retain data, and that has been focused on by several of the reviewing bodies as an important feature of such a policy. So its presence in there is no accident, but I think that the timeline, 14 months, makes a lot of sense.
The only comment I have on is going back to Mr. Walker, the suggestions on Section 3 on including the Milton Police Department and law enforcement. And I want to think about that a little bit because it seems to me that I could see it being the case if the superintendent or the principal is unavailable. But if there were a circumstance where the principal or the superintendent is there, if there is a different view, someone has to have the authority.
Yeah.
Right? Someone needs to. And again, I want to think about it a little bit, but my visceral response is, well, maybe we say, or the Milton Police Department or law enforcement, if the superintendent or the principal is unavailable, or something like that. That's my initial thought, but I haven't really digested it
Well,
fully.
as I thought about this, I tried to envision a scenario where law enforcement would be saying, we need to view these recordings,
Right.
and the superintendent would say no.
Right.
And I couldn't come up with one.
Right.
So that's why I
Right.
thought adding that should not be problematic, but certainly worthy of discussion.
Yeah, okay.
Can I,
Ms. Padera.
because I was reading that too, and aren't we kind of covered about that with this next, not the next line, the line after that, it says a memorandum of understanding shall be entered into, and we could add regarding security recordings and their use or viewings. That could be covered. That way you put the superintendent and the building principal in charge first, but that, the MPD is obviously involved in an agreement with us on viewings and recordings.
Well,
seems
if you said, it depends on what the MOA said or the MOU said. If it said what I've just proposed, then that would be fine. But I think you're saying that I think either whether you do it in the policy, the body of the policy, or you do it in the content that's included in the MOA, I think I would still suggest that at this point, I can't think of a scenario where it would be problematic to say or rather than that it has to be the superintendent. but as I said, worthy of discussion.
Anything further on this? So we will put this on the agenda for next week, and if legal counsel can weigh in by then, that would be helpful, and we can all think about this. If anyone has any suggestions, thoughts on proposed changes, I suggest you give them to Dr. Donahue, and then he'll compile all of them, and we'll review it on next week. Okay? All right, thank you. Should we do a traffic and transportation subcommittee? Okay, all right. Next on the agenda, the traffic and transportation and traffic subcommittee report. Ms. Varela.
Okay, so the biggest thing, a couple of things, but I'm going to start with the biggest thing, and that's, just FYI in the community that the elementary schools are formally starting a safety patrol, and Jake Smith and Yana Linhart, who is our Massachusetts Department of Transportation liaison, who helps us, I've reached out to AAA does this and implements it, and has a partnership with schools who want to do it. So Mr. Smith had an application and an essay that went out to all the fifth graders who were interested in it, and they had to fill out the application and write an essay of why they would want to be a member of the safety patrol for their school, and they were reviewed and vetted, and the students were chosen. So there's six members at Collicott, there are 6 members at Cunningham, 9 members at Glover, and 3 at Tucker. And so they are going to, their training is supposed to happen probably not, maybe next week, because next week the last week before spring break. So the training will go in the week before April break, and then they'll reconvene again the last week of April, and it's set to start in May, like this pilot program for the last 2 months of school. So we're kind of excited about it. We'll see, how it plays out. I told Jake that I would really like, maybe like in the May meeting, like maybe the last May meeting or one of the June meetings, I'd like the safety patrol to come and kind of present and, how it's been, how the process has been and how it's going, and to report on it. I think that would be a really great thing. So we're excited about it, and we're excited about how much interest there was amongst the fifth graders. So we're eager to find out where that goes.
I'm really sorry I'm going to miss the safety patrol presentation.
No, you can still come. You can still come, Mr.
really
Zulis.
sorry,
Yes.
yeah.
Mr.
So
Walker.
I'm very excited. So are we doing badges?
They're not badges, they're vests. They're like a safety patrol vest, although Mr. Smith did mention, I don't know if it was a student at Cunningham or Collicott, said that they desperately did want to be a part of this safety patrol unit, but was wearing a vest or a badge requirement, which of course to Mr. Zulis and us was a little heartbreaking, because that's one of the things that I really liked. But it, it is, and they understand, because if the kids want to, comply with what they're being instructed, that they have to know they're in a position of, I don't want to use the word power, but leadership.
Authority.
Right? Yeah, authority, position of authority. So yes, no, they don't do badges. They do it's like a safety vest, I believe. And those are also provided by AAA, in the partnership. So it's like a free partnership, because they want schools to implement these kind of things. So we're looking forward to seeing how it goes. Yeah, I think it'll be great. I think it'll be a nice thing. So that's what's happening at the elementary schools. At Pierce, the issue that's come up with Pierce parents that people are concerned about, which I spoke about, was about school zone signage. Especially people coming down Reedsdale or Brook, and some of the Pierce representatives, queried and were concerned that, because so many of them are sort of such, main roads, a lot busy in that time of day, both at pickup and drop off, that there's not signage. And Dr. Pavlicek, who sits on the committee with me, explained that we could possibly still put signage up, like if we wanted to put something up on Reedsdale or something on Brook, well, really mostly Reedsdale, but that it's not enforceable by law because it's because there are already lights, there are cross lights, that at that area. So it's like a school zone designation can only come at a lighted crosswalk, as it's coming. So we're still going to work with Lieutenant Alba to see, what it would invest to still maybe put something up. I mean, whether or not the driver, did not abide by it, and it was not like a police could ticket them or whatever, but we still were wondering, feedback from them of how much safer it might be that when people are flying down those roads in the morning, that there's an FYI that the school's, coming upon them, then it might be a little bit safer. Because there are a lot more kids walking. I mean, which is a great thing, but it's now I'm on this transportation subcommittee. My kids are like, Mom, because every time I'm coming around there, I'm looking at how everything is. And I did have to, I did want to point out, and I'm just going to say, like, kudos to Superintendent Gormley, that this week when we did have the snow, okay, in the afternoon, and it was still a regular school day, okay, I do have to say I was working from home that day, and I did pick up at Pierce. And again, it was a light snow. I mean, it wasn't accumulation or whatever, but when the weather, it was windy, it was, stormy, and when there was all those students walking, all those buses out there, all that commotion, it was a little scary, like that you're hoping that everyone is going to like step back, be more patient, the pickup, kids can't really see the snow and the wind was in their face. And I know that some parents at home are like, oh, why are they canceling it? Oh, why? It's because when they drive to school on those days, there are no buses. There's less parents on the road because they're probably staying home with their kids. And there's less walkers, there's less danger. So of course, when you're driving, you don't think it's that bad. But when that stuff is happening and all those kids are merging, so, it was food for thought about because I was just so concerned with my eyes darting out about the safety of everything going on, because kids were all over. And I do have to commend all of the teachers, Dr. Spalding, at least at the Pierce, which is one of the busiest pickup and drop-offs there, had the teachers out and was directing traffic, and, all went well, but it was a little nerve-wracking because of the weather. I will say that after-school activities were canceled, which I was glad to hear, but that's something to think about, around there. And then also, Dr. Pavlicek, I know he's not here tonight, he still did not have a chance to follow up with Lieutenant Alba about the possibility of a crosswalk at the library corners, because that was something else that we had asked Lieutenant Alba to kind of like put some cruisers out and view both in the morning and the afternoon about the volume, about that, because again, there are a lot of middle school walkers coming up there, and even some Milton Academy kids that come down that way. And it's sort of the same situation where, yes, there's a light, but there's 5 corners there. Huh?
This is on Reedsdale.
It's Reedsdale, so it's like where Canton, Center, Reedsdale meets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 corners of traffic, coming in. Kind of like there is light to Pierce, but we still have a crosswalk because it's just such a busy intersection. So we hope to get update on that. And then Glover, the representative from Glover, there's still some concern and dissatisfaction with the traffic buildup at Glover. And as much as we did try to enforce what we're doing at Pierce at pick up and drop off of them pulling up as far as possible and not stopping, it still can get backed up. So one of the things we think that we might try to address, we'll start at the end of this year and look into next year, is what we can do, or reworking that front Glover parking lot. Like, what benefits would it bring? Would it alleviate the traffic and the pickup and the drop off? But that's like kind of a long-term thing, but that's a goal that we're going to look at and investigate and address. And then finally, high school stuff came up because we really hadn't addressed anything or talked so much about the traffic concerns. And then the parents had come up with they're concerned about texting and driving, and that even Chief Wells, when he comes and speaks at the middle school, he does say kids don't drink and drive. I mean, not that they never do, but the percentage from, I'd say, when we were all in high school, I mean, it has dropped immensely. Not that there's not issues with drug and alcohol abuse that needs to be addressed, which of course the coalition is doing, which we're grateful for. But kids don't drink and drive, but kids are driving, and kids are obsessed with their phones and obsessed with texting. And there's concern that texting is the new issue of drinking and driving. So we had started to do some investigation with organizations that do kind of like, distracted driving and that kind of education, which is kind of a new wave. And there are some organizations out there. So when I reached out to Mr. Jett, again, giving kudos, and I know he spoke about some possible organizations that we're thinking of bringing in, he of course said, we're already on that and are working with Arbella Insurance that again has this, free program, they call it Distractology, about where, kids it's going to be in June to high school drivers, where they really can feel what it's like if they're texting and if they were texting, what could happen. They think they can do it all. And maybe some parents in town should take it too, really, when you think about it. But, I'm excited about the feedback on that, and we'll see. I kind of asked him if, I don't know if somebody from site or whatever could come to a transportation meeting and either at the very end of June or in the fall and let us know, how that went and what they felt the outcome of that was. But I was glad that something is being done and addressed with safety and transportation, and where they feel that's a big issue with high schoolers. So that's all I have.
That's a great report. That's great. Thank you.
Dr. Donahue?
Yeah. So I just wanted to, the snow in the last week reminded me that at Glover drop-off, traffic on White Lawn, which is that little half circle there, can get dicey when you have snowbanks and parked cars on one side and bi-directional traffic. So when you have your next meeting, that may be something that you...
Yeah, we'll do that. Can I ask, because the White Lawn issue has been brought up before, that there is a, I don't know if it's called a law, but a recommendation that's gone out to the Glover community that even when parents come for pickup or drop off, that they only can wait on one side of White Lawn because it was getting just too congested and both sides. That whole community was just inundated both at pickup and drop off. So I know now it's just that people, if they are going to, wait there, it's just they only can go in one way and come out one way. They can't park on both sides of the street once they're there or turn around or do that. I'm just saying for spaces while they're idling and waiting for their kids.
I think you can go both ways, but you're only allowed to park on one side
Right,
of the street
right.
so that cars can fit.
Right.
And as Dr. Donahue said, with the snowbanks, it encroaches further out,
Yeah.
and then it becomes even hard to
Right.
fit two cars going different ways with cars parked along
Right.
the street. And more people, when there's bad weather like that, because the car
Yep.
line gets longer,
Right.
then more people
They're
park
saying-
along that way.
Right.
But it's it becomes a problem. People get a little anxious, and then they also run their cars, which people become frustrated with. They park in front of driveways because there's nobody in the driveway, so they assume they can get away with it for just 5 minutes to drop the kid off. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where people get a little more impatient at the end of the year and drop kids off on Canton, which is always another problem. They drop them off right before and then block the car line.
Well, maybe we'll reach out at our next meeting. We'll put Glover on there, and then maybe even reach out to the principals and see what can be done as reminders and reinforcements from now until, what do we get out, June 17th?
And I'm going to attend that meeting. I have an idea.
Okie dokie, Superintendent Gorman. We'll take
She's always
any
got
ideas
idea
you
with
want to
the Glover
do.
driving.
case.
Okay.
Can I just?
Yeah, sure.
So one other thing I was going to say, and I don't know if it's been brought up, but the crosswalk, which conveniently is near both Glover and Pierce, the crosswalk, where you cross into Turner's Pond, that's used by a lot of kids, and there's no light there. There's a crosswalk sign. People fly through that, and I'm sure that people on your committee have noticed it, have said it. But maybe that would be a place for a flashing school sign, because there's no light there. It's a crosswalk with no light, and it would cover both Glover and Pierce. It would slow people down a little bit before the intersection where kids are coming out down that hill with their bike from Hinckley.
Yep.
So maybe that would be an option. I don't know.
Okay, oh, that's good, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Brill. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Can we tackle some minutes? All right.
do it.
Make it up.
Motion for approval of the minutes dated January 6, 2016. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. It's unanimous, 4-0. Maura, 4-0 with Mr. Walker out of the room. Minutes of January 20, 2016. Motion for approval of minutes dated January 20, 2016. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous, 4-0 with Mr. Walker out of the room. Minutes dated February 10, 2016. Sorry. I move for approval of the minutes dated February 10, 2016. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous, 4-0. Mr. Walker out of the room. Motion for approval of the minutes dated February 24th, 2016. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous with Mr. Walker out of the room. Thank you. Citizen speak topic response. I don't believe we have anything. Next meeting agenda items. Next meeting agenda items. We have the second reading of the security camera policy. We'll have a follow-up discussion of the non-employee security badges. We probably will have we'll probably have a executive session prior to the meeting. So an executive session, and I'll poll the members on this, but we may have an executive session at 6:45 if we can, or perhaps at 7. But we'll have an executive session prior to the meeting, and then we may be taking up some related matters during the meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Walker.
I may have a conflict. I scheduled a facilities subcommittee meeting to review proposals. This was before I got your email.
Okay.
We might be having a meeting, so if we could defer the more important agenda items to later in the meeting, that would be better.
Yes, the answer is yes. Maybe what we'll do is when you arrive, we'll go into executive session and then come out of executive session. So we'll do that. And then we can talk about the timing of that offline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Citizen speak, I don't believe we see any here. And so I will move to adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session for the purpose of discussion negotiation strategy with MEA and AFSCME, negotiation strategy for non-union personnel, and approval of minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Ms. Varela?
Yes.
Mr. Zulish, yes. Ms. Padera? Yes. Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Donahue?
Yes.
We are adjourned, and we will see you next week on April 13th. 13th? Yes, April 13th at 7 p.m. Thank you very much.